Imagine you wake up one morning and everything feels wrong. Not broken, not dramatic, just wrong. You have the job you wanted, the relationship you worked for, maybe even the apartment with the good light, and yet something is missing. You can't name it, you just know somewhere deep in your chest that you're not living the way you were supposed to live. Most people call that feeling anxiety or burnout or a quarter life crisis. Plato had a different name for it. He would say, you've lost sight of the good. Not goodness in the moral sense, not being nice to your neighbors or recycling your bottles. Something far larger than that. Something he believed was the most real thing in the entire universe. And here's what's strange. Once you understand what Plato meant by the good, you'll never look at your own restlessness quite the same way again. Stay with me, because this idea is going to change how you see almost everything. Plato was born in Athens around 428 BCE into a world that was unraveling. The great democratic experiment of Athens had just executed his mentor Socrates for asking too many uncomfortable questions. That moment, watching the city he loved kill the wisest man he knew, shattered something in Plato and rebuilt it into philosophy. He spent years traveling, thinking, and eventually founded the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning in Western history. But the question that never left him was the one Socrates had planted. What is the good? Not what is good for you personally, not what society happens to approve of this century. What is good absolutely in itself, regardless of what anyone thinks. Plato became convinced that goodness wasn't an opinion. It wasn't a cultural preference or a feeling. It was a form, an eternal perfect reality that existed beyond the physical world we see and touch. And the form of the good was not just one form among many. It was the highest form. The source of all reality, all knowledge, all truth. That's a bold claim. Let's see what he actually meant. Think about light. You're sitting in a dark room and someone turns on a lamp. Suddenly you can see everything. The furniture, the walls, the face of the person next to you. The light didn't create those things. They were already there. But without the light you couldn't see them, and in a very real sense they were useless to you. Plato said the form of the good works exactly like that. It doesn't create the other forms, justice, beauty, truth, equality, but it illuminates them, it makes them knowable. Without the good, even perfect justice would be invisible to the human mind. This is the famous analogy of the sun from his dialogue, The Republic, and it's one of the most quietly radical ideas in the history of philosophy. He pushed it further with the allegory of the cave. Picture people chained inside a cave since birth, watching shadows on a wall. Those shadows are all they know. They name them, argue about them, build entire lives around interpreting them. Then one person breaks free, climbs out of the cave, and sees the actual world, trees, sky, other people. At first the sunlight is blinding and painful, but slowly they adjust. They see reality as it actually is. And the very last thing they are able to look at directly, the thing so bright it almost destroys them to see, is the sun itself. That sun is the form of the good. Plato is telling you that most of us are living in the cave. We mistake our opinions for truth, our habits for wisdom, our desires for purpose, and that hollow feeling you woke up with this morning, that might be the echo of something inside you that already suspects the cave isn't the whole story. Not everyone agreed with Plato, and the disagreements are worth sitting with. Aristotle, his most brilliant student, walked out of the academy and spent his career dismantling this picture. Aristotle thought the good wasn't some abstract form floating outside the world. The good was embedded in things. It was function, purpose, flourishing, what he called eudaimonia. A knife is good when it cuts well. A human being is good when they live according to their nature, in community, developing their capacities over a lifetime. Aristotle thought Plato's good was too untouchable, too removed from the messy, embodied reality of human life. Later, the Epicureans would push back even harder, arguing that the good was simpler still, pleasure, tranquility, freedom from unnecessary suffering. Why reach for some transcendent form when happiness was right here, available in a garden with friends and decent bread? These tensions are real, and they never fully resolved. Plato's vision is breathtaking in its ambition, but it risks making goodness unreachable. Aristotle's is practical and grounded, but it risks shrinking the question to fit the answer. So what do you do with this today? Here's the practical edge of Plato's idea. We live in a culture that is very good at offering you proxies for the good. Money, status, follower counts, productivity metrics, all of them promise to tell you whether you're doing well, and they're not nothing. But Plato would say they're shadows. They're the flickering images on the cave wall, convincing precisely because you've never seen the real thing. The Platonic move is to ask, underneath every goal you're chasing, what am I actually seeking here? Not the job, but what the job represents. Not the relationship, but what it makes you feel when it's at its best. Keep asking that question and something interesting happens. You start to notice that what you're reaching for keeps pointing toward the same cluster of things: meaning, truth, connection, wholeness. Plato called that pointing the philosophical impulse. He believed it was the most human thing about us. Every time you feel that something is wrong, even when everything looks right, you are, in Plato's terms, remembering the good from a distance. Here's the question I want to leave with you. If there is a good that exists beyond opinions, beyond culture, beyond what anyone tells you to want, would you want to find it? And more uncomfortably, are you living in a way that moves you toward it, or are you very busily, very efficiently moving away? Plato didn't think this question had an easy answer. He thought it was the only question worth spending a life on. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe Aristotle was closer, or the Epicureans. But the fact that you felt something in that question, that small flicker of recognition, might be worth following. If you want to go deeper into how Plato thought we could actually escape the cave, the next video is waiting for you.